Jack had been to the alien city many times before, but that night felt different. The streets were quieter than usual, and a cold wind swept between the tall crystal towers. He carried a small crate of supplies, heading back to his ship after a long day of trade. The city's glowing lights reflected in puddles on the ground, but his mind was on the deal he had made earlier. He took a turn into a narrow alley. Thinking it was a shortcut, that was his first mistake. The alley led him to a strange courtyard he had never seen before. The air here was still, and the walls were covered in hanging lanterns that swayed gently. In the center stood 3 figures. 2 were tall and armored, their faces hidden by black masks. The third was a young alien woman with silver-blue skin and eyes like molten gold. Her dress shimmered under the lantern light, and she clutched something close to her chest. Jack stopped at the edge of the shadows, not wanting to be seen. The masked warrior spoke in low, harsh tones, their alien language full of sharp sounds. The girl's voice trembled as she answered them, but her words grew louder and angrier. Then one of the warriors stepped forward, grabbing her arm roughly. A small, glowing crystal slipped from his belt and rolled across the stones. The girl's eyes darted to it, and in a flash she snatched it up. Hiding it in her dress, the warrior shouted. Their voices echoing through the courtyard, the girl twisted free and ran toward the far exit. The warriors chased after her, their armor clanking against the ground. Jack stayed frozen, unsure if he should follow or run, but before disappearing into the shadows, the girl's gaze flicked toward him. She saw him, and Jack felt a sudden chill in his stomach. He hurried away, pretending he had seen nothing. But his heart pounded, that glowing crystal. It was no ordinary gem. He had heard stories about such things, rare, powerful, and dangerous. The kind of thing people killed for. Hours later, Jack sat in his small rented room near the spaceport. He had locked the door and was packing his things. He wanted to leave the city before whatever trouble he had stumbled into caught up with him. That's when there was a soft knock. 3 slow taps. Jack frowned, walking to the door. When he opened it, the alien girl stood there. Her golden eyes glistened with tears, her breath quick and uneven. "You've seen too much, human," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Marry me, or my brothers will kill you." Jack blinked, thinking he had heard wrong. "What?" he asked, but she stepped inside quickly, closing the door behind her. "They know you saw me take the crystal," she said, her hands gripping his shoulders. "They know your face, and they will hunt you. The only way to protect you under our law is if you become my husband. Then you will be family, and they cannot touch you." Jack took a step back. "This is insane," he said. "I don't even know you." The girl's expression hardened. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and I am the daughter of the High General. The men you saw are my brothers. They are loyal to the king, but the crystal I took. It contains proof of his plan to start a war with your people. If I give it to the wrong person, millions will die. If I give it to the right one, the king will be destroyed. But first, I must keep you alive." Jack stared at her, the room feeling smaller by the second. "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. "You didn't," she agreed, "but you are in it now. They are already searching for you if we don't leave. Tonight, you'll be dead before sunrise." Suddenly, there was a noise outside. The sound of boots on the metal walkway, slow and heavy. Lyra's eyes widened, and she grabbed his arm. "They've found you," she whispered. Jack hesitated only for a second before shoving his few belongings into a bag. He didn't know if she was lying, but he knew one thing: if he stayed here, he might not live to find out. They slipped out the back door into the cold night. The streets were darker now, the lanterns dimming as the city prepared for curfew. Lyra led him through winding alleys, her steps quick and sure. Jack's mind raced. He was running through a strange city in the middle of the night. with a stranger who claimed to be a general's daughter, holding a crystal that could start a war. And now, apparently, he was supposed to marry her. They paused behind a stack of cargo crates. From the main street, Jack heard voices deep. Commanding, searching, he peeked out and saw two masked warriors speaking with a merchant. Showing him a hologram, Jack's face was on it. Lyra touched his arm gently. "We have little time," she said. "There's a place we can hide until dawn, but once morning comes, we must complete the marriage ritual. It is the only way." Jack shook his head. "This is madness," he said, but his voice was low. "Madness or survival?" Lyra replied. Her eyes fierce despite the fear in them. "Choose quickly. Human, because if you wait too long, my brothers will choose for you." The night air was sharp against Jack's face as they slipped deeper into the city's shadows. Lyra moved quickly, her long dress brushing against the walls as she pulled him along narrow paths he didn't know existed. The glowing towers of the main streets faded behind them, replaced by dim corridors lit only by the occasional flicker of a broken lantern. Jack could hear footsteps echoing somewhere behind, but it was hard to tell how far. "Keep your head down," Lyra whispered, her voice barely a breath. They passed under an arched gate and into an old market square that looked abandoned. Tattered cloth hung from wooden poles and dust coated the ground. Jack noticed strange markings carved into the walls, the kind he'd seen in old alien temples. He wondered if this part of the city was even on the maps. They ducked into a narrow tunnel hidden between two crumbling stalls. Inside it was darker, the air thick with the smell of damp stone. Jack felt the walls close in around them as they walked. He wanted to ask where they were going, but every time he opened his mouth, the sound of movement somewhere nearby made him stay silent. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small, underground chamber. Faint blue light glowed from crystals in the ceiling, casting long shadows across the room. Lyra turned to face him, her golden eyes catching the glow. "We're safe. For now," she said, "but not for long. They will search every corner of the city before dawn." Jack leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "You keep saying we," he said. "But this is your fight, not mine." Lyra shook her head. "You saw the crystal, Jack, in my world. That makes you part of it, whether you want to be or not. My brothers are sworn to protect the king, and that means they will kill anyone who stands in his way. You are now in their way." Jack rubbed his temples, trying to process everything. "So your solution is marriage," he said slowly. Lyra stepped closer. "It is the only protection I can offer you. Under our law, harming a spouse is forbidden. The bond is sacred, even above the king's command, if we do it before sunrise. They cannot touch you without bringing dishonor to our family." Jack laughed bitterly. "A family that wants me dead." Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. "I don't expect you to understand our customs, but you must trust me," she said. "If you don't, you won't survive the night." Before Jack could respond, a faint metallic clang echoed from the tunnel behind them. Lyra's head snapped toward the sound. Her eyes darkened, and she moved quickly to a hidden panel in the wall. Pulling out a small, curved blade, she pressed it into Jack's hand. "If they find us, fight. Don't hesitate." Jack stared at the weapon, feeling its cold weight. "I'm a traitor, not a soldier," he muttered. "Then learn fast," she said. Her tone left no room for argument. The sound grew louder. Footsteps. Slow and deliberate, the glow from the tunnel brightened as if someone carried a light. Jack's grip on the blade tightened. He could hear his own heartbeat pounding. In his ears, Lyra positioned herself at the side of the entrance, ready to strike. A shadow appeared in the opening, tall and broad. For a moment, Jack thought it was one of her brothers. But when the figure stepped into the light, he realized it was a city guard. The man's eyes scanned the room before settling on Jack. "You." The guard said in a deep voice, "Come with me." Lyra stepped forward, her blade pointed at the guard. "No," she said coldly. The guard smirked. "You think you can stop them? Your brothers are already here, girl. They know the human is with you." Jack's stomach twisted. There was no more time to argue about marriage or trust. Every second they stayed here made it easier for the hunters to close in. Lyra's hand found his, gripping tightly. "We move now," she whispered, and before Jack could reply, she pulled him through another hidden exit in the wall. They emerged into the cold night once more. Climbing up a steep stone stairway that led to the rooftops, the wind bit at their faces as they ran. The city spread out below them, glowing with hundreds of lights. Somewhere out there, masked warriors were searching, and Jack knew they wouldn't stop until they had his head. Lyra glanced at him as they ran, her voice carrying in the wind. "At dawn, the vows must be spoken," she said. "If we fail, you die." The rooftops were slick with a thin layer of frost. Jack's boots slipped more than once, and only Lyra's quick grip kept him from falling. The air was colder here, the wind cutting through his jacket. Below, the streets were alive with movement small. Patrols of armored warriors moving like hunting packs. Their dark shapes darting through alleys. Searching, they crossed from one roof to another, the wooden planks creaking under their weight. In the distance, Jack could see the first hint of dawn on the horizon. A pale silver light creeping into the black sky. Lyra noticed it too, and her pace quickened. "We have less than an hour," she said. "If the sun rises before we finish, the bond will be rejected by the old magic." Jack still couldn't believe this was real. Just yesterday, his biggest worry was getting a fair price for fuel. Now he was running across alien rooftops in the freezing dark, holding a stolen crystal, and being told to marry a stranger to avoid execution. It sounded like the kind of story you hear in a bar and don't believe. They reached the edge of the roof and climbed down a rusted ladder into a forgotten courtyard. In the center stood a structure made of pale stone, its surface carved with thousands of thin lines that glowed faintly. Jack felt a strange pressure in his chest the moment they stepped inside the courtyard. "This is an old vow chamber," Lyra said, leading him toward the archway. "It was built before my people joined the king's rule. It still holds the power to bind to souls as one." Jack glanced around uneasily. "And this magic? It works on humans?" Lyra met his eyes. "If your words are true, yes. If you lie, it will kill you." The inside of the chamber was silent. The air heavy. At the center was a raised platform with two shallow bowls carved into the stone floor. Each bowl was filled with a shimmering silver liquid that rippled even though the air was still. Lyra took his hand and led him to stand opposite her. "You must repeat after me," she said softly. Her voice echoed faintly off the walls. Jack hesitated. "And if I don't?" Lyra's golden eyes hardened. "Then my brothers will cut you down before the next moon, and no one will stop them." Jack's throat was dry. He gave a single nod. Lyra began speaking words in her language, the syllables flowing like water. Jack repeated them slowly, his tongue stumbling over the strange sounds as he spoke. The silver liquid in the bowls began to glow brighter, a thin mist rising from them. They had barely reached the halfway point when the sound of heavy boots thundered outside the chamber. Lyra's eyes widened in panic. "They found us," she whispered. The door slammed open, and two masked warriors stepped inside, swords drawn. Behind them came a third figure, taller, broader, with armor marked by golden lines. His presence made the air feel colder. "Step away from the human, Lyra," the tall one commanded. His voice was deep and sharp. Lyra's grip on Jack's hands tightened. "We are in the middle of the vows, Arvan," she said. The tall warrior tilted his head slightly. "Then I will end them now." He moved forward, his sword raised. Jack didn't think he stepped in front of Lyra. The curved blade she had given him flashing in the silver light, the clash was quick and brutal. Steel ringing against steel, Jack's arms shook from the force of the blow. But he held his ground. Lyra's voice continued the vow words, faster now, urgent. The mist from the bowls rose higher, curling around them like ghostly hands. The warriors behind Arvon hesitated. Their steps faltering, Jack realized the magic was already binding them. Every word Lyra spoke seemed to tighten invisible threads around them both. Arvon roared and struck again, driving Jack back, but Lyra shouted the final vow word. The mist exploded in a burst of silver light. The air shook, and the warriors froze as if chained by unseen bonds. Arvon's sword dropped from his hand, clattering to the floor. "It is done," Lyra said. Her voice trembling, she looked at Jack, a strange mix of relief and fear in her eyes. "You are my husband now, human." Jack's mind was spinning. But there was no time to think. From outside, more footsteps were approaching. The vow chamber's protection might keep her brothers from killing him, but it would not stop them from taking them both away. Lyra grabbed his arm. "We run again," she said, and just like that, they plunged back into the cold dawn, bound together by a magic neither of them fully understood. The sun was climbing above the horizon, turning the alien city into a maze of gold and shadow. Jack and Lyra moved quickly through the narrow back streets, their breath steaming in the cold air. The vow chamber's magic still clung to him like a weight, his skin tingling where her hands had touched his. He didn't know if it was the bond or the adrenaline, but every sound made his pulse race. They slipped into a covered walkway, where merchants were just starting to open their stalls. The scent of hot bread and spiced drinks drifted through the air. Jack's stomach growled. But there was no time to stop. Lyra's hood was pulled low over her face, and Jack noticed her glancing over her shoulder every few steps. "You said they can't hurt me now," Jack whispered. "Why are we still running?" Lyra didn't look at him. "The bond protects your life, not your freedom. My brothers can still take you, lock you away, or deliver you to the king's court once there. The king will find another way to end you and me." They reached the edge of the marketplace and slipped into a small repair shop that smelled of oil and dust. Inside, a wiry old alien with metallic implants for eyes looked up from his workbench. His gaze flicked between them and the street outside. "You're late," he said to Lyra. "This is Joran." Lyra told Jack. "He owes me a favor." Joran's metal eyes narrowed. "I owe you nothing that will bring the king's wrath to my door," he muttered, but he moved to a back wall and pressed a hidden switch. A panel slid open, revealing a dark passage. "Through here, quick." They stepped inside the panel. Sliding shut behind them, the passage was cramped, the walls damp, and the air heavy with the smell of rust. "Where does this lead?" Jack asked. "To the desert," Lyra said. "Beyond the city walls. They will have a harder time tracking us." They moved in silence for a while, the only sound their footsteps splashing through shallow puddles. Jack's mind kept replaying the fight in the vow chamber, the look in Arven's eyes, and the strange pull he felt whenever Lyra was near. He didn't know if it was the magic or something else, and he didn't want to think about it. The tunnel opened into an abandoned storage yard. The morning light was harsh here, and the sand beyond the broken gates stretched out like a vast ocean. Old vehicles sat rusting in the corners, their metal frames half buried. Lyra headed for a small, battered sand runner and started checking its engine. Jack kept watch at the gate, scanning the street for any sign of movement. At first, there was nothing. Then a faint shimmer in the air caught his eye. He narrowed his gaze, and his stomach sank. Shadows moved along the rooftops in the distance, closing in. "We've got company," he called out. Lyra cursed under her breath and tossed him a small pack. Get on, she said. The Sandrunner roared to life with a sputtering growl. Jack climbed onto the seat behind her, gripping the side as the vehicle shot forward through the gates and into the open desert. The city shrank behind them, swallowed by the rising heat waves. For a brief moment, Jack felt the rush of freedom. The wind tore at his clothes, and the endless horizon stretched ahead. But then he saw them 3 black specks growing larger in the distance behind. Moving fast, the masked warriors were following on sleek hovercrafts, cutting through the K. Sand-like predators, they won't stop, Lyra shouted over the engine. Not until we are dead or captured. Jack's hand tightened on the pack she had given him. What's in here? He asked. Water, food, and a weapon, she replied without looking back. If they catch us, you'll need it. The hovercrafts closed in, the whine of their engines rising. Jack could see the glint of sunlight on their weapons. A shot cracked through the air, sending sand spraying near the Sandrunner's side. Lyra swerved sharply, the vehicle skidding but staying upright. Hold on, she warned. She steered toward a rocky ridge ahead. The ground growing rougher, the hovercrafts followed, their riders closing the gap. Jack could hear the hiss of the sand under their skids. Another shot rang out, this one grazing the edge of the Sandrunner and leaving a smoking scar on the metal. As they reached the ridge, Lyra made a sudden turn, diving into a narrow canyon. The hovercrafts followed, but the path was tight, forcing them to slow. Jack looked back, meeting the dark, unblinking eyes of one of the masked warriors. He didn't know if it was Arvin, but the gaze felt just as deadly. The canyon twisted sharply, and ahead Jack saw a faint shimmer of water and green, an oasis hidden in the rock. Lyra pushed the Sandrunner harder. We stop here, she said. We can't outrun them forever, so we fight. The Sandrunner slid to a stop beside the oasis, its engine ticking as it cooled. The water shimmered under the sunlight, surrounded by tall, thin trees with silver leaves. Jack jumped off. Scanning the canyon entrance, the sound of the hovercrafts was still there, a faint hum that grew louder with every second. Lyra moved quickly, pulling the pack from the Sandrunner and tossing him a short energy rifle. Stay low and aim for the chest, she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands moved fast. Checking the weapon's charge, Jack crouched behind a rock, his heart pounding. He had fired a gun before, but never at living targets. The first hovercraft appeared, sliding into the oasis clearing. The masked warrior riding it leaped off before it even stopped, landing in a crouch with a long spear in hand. Another followed, and then a third. They spread out, surrounding the pool. The sunlight reflected off their black armor, making them look like shadows given form. One of them stepped forward, his voice sharp and cold. Return the crystal, Lyra, and we may let the human live. Jack's eyes flicked toward her. She stood tall, her golden eyes burning. You lie, she said. The king ordered my death the moment I took it. You will not have it. The warrior's stance shifted, and Jack felt the tension snap. A spear shot through the air toward Lyra. She dodged, the weapon embedding into a tree trunk with a deep thud. Jack's instincts took over, and he fired. The blast hit one of the warriors, square in the chest, sending him sprawling into the sand. The air filled with the sound of weapons blaster fire, the hiss of spears slicing through the air. Lyra moved like water, her blade flashing as she cut down another attacker. Jack stayed behind cover, firing when he could, each shot making his hands shake a little less. But then the largest of the warriors stepped forward, removing his mask. Jack recognized the face immediately. It was Arvin. His eyes locked on Jack with pure hate. You think marriage will save you? Arvin said, the king's law means nothing to me. Lyra moved between them. Then you break your own blood oath, she said. Arvin's jaw tightened. "You are no sister of mine," he growled, and charged. The fight was brutal, Arvin's strength overwhelming. Lyra barely blocked his strikes. The sound of steel against steel echoing through the canyon. Jack's eyes darted to the pack on the ground. He saw something glinting from inside another crystal. Smaller, pulsing with faint light. He realized this wasn't just the stolen one, it was different. Lyra had hidden more than she told him. Arvin knocked Lyra's blade from her hand, sending it clattering into the sand. Jack didn't think. He grabbed the small crystal and held it up. "Back off, or I smash it," he shouted. Arvon froze, his eyes narrowing. For the first time, Jack saw fear in the warrior's face. "That is not yours," Arvon said slowly. Lyra's breathing was ragged, but she smiled faintly. "It is now," she said, "and with it, we decide the fate of your king." Before Arvin could move, the sound of more engines filled the canyon. Jack turned to see dust rising beyond the oasis. Another group was arriving. But these were not masked warriors. The glint of human military armor caught the sunlight. "Your people?" Lyra asked. Jack nodded slowly. But something about the way they moved made him uneasy. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe not." The sound of the engines grew louder. Dust curling into the sky like smoke. Jack kept the glowing crystal raised. In his hand, Lyra stayed close to him, her breathing still uneven from the fight. Arvin's gaze shifted between the crystal and the approaching figures, his jaw tight through the heat shimmer. The human soldiers came into focus, but their armor looked strange, bulkier, painted with markings Jack didn't recognize. They stopped their vehicles at the edge of the oasis, weapons ready. The leader stepped forward, his visor sliding up to reveal a hard, expressionless face. "Traitor Jack Caro," the man said in a flat voice. "By order of the Colonial Command, you are to hand over the alien female and any contraband in your possession." Jack felt his grip tighten on the crystal. Something was wrong if they were really from Colonial Command. They would be helping him, not aiming guns at him. "These aren't your people," Lyra whispered, her golden eyes narrowed. "Mercenaries in stolen armor." Arvon let out a low laugh. "Looks like you've got more enemies than I thought." Human, the mercenaries began to fan out. Circling the oasis, Jack could feel the trap closing. Lyra's hand brushed his, her fingers curling slightly as if asking for the crystal. He shook his head. "Not yet," he murmured. The leader's voice hardened. "Hand her over, and we might let you live." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the danger. "If you want me, you'll have to kill him first," she said. The words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Arvin shifted suddenly, moving toward Jack. Jack spun to face him, but instead of attacking, Arvin planted himself between Jack and the mercenaries. "No one takes what is bound by our law," he growled. The mercenary leader smirked. "Then you can die with them." Gunfire erupted. The oasis exploded into chaos. Bullets tore through the silver leaves. Splashing into the water, Jack dropped behind a rock, firing the energy rifle in short bursts. Lyra moved with precise, deadly strikes, while Arvon fought like a storm, his blade flashing in the sun. One mercenary broke through the chaos, charging straight at Jack. Jack blocked with the rifle, the impact jolting up his arms. He fired point blank, sending the man crashing into the sand. But more kept coming, their numbers pressing in like a tide. The crystal in Jack's hand pulsed brighter, the light spilling between his fingers. He felt a strange pull in his chest, as if the crystal wanted him to do something. Lyra shouted over the gunfire, "If you break it now, the king's plans die with him, but so will we." Jack's heart pounded. Arvin was fighting off two mercenaries at once, blood running down his arm. Lyra was backing toward him, her blade nicked and bent. The air was filled with heat, sand, and the smell of ozone from energy fire. Jack?" Lyra's voice cut through the noise, urgent and raw. "Decide." His eyes darted between the glowing crystal, the mercenaries closing in, and the two alien warriors, one who had sworn to kill him, now fighting to keep him alive. The choice felt like it would end everything, one way or another. The gunfire seemed to fade into a dull roar in Jack's ears. His fingers tightened around the crystal, its light now so bright it hurt to look at. Lyra's voice was still calling his name, but it sounded far away. He felt the strange pull again. Stronger this time, not like an object in his hand, but like it was alive and reaching into his thoughts. The mercenaries were closing in from all sides. Arvin was barely standing, his blade dripping with blood. Lyra was at Jack's side now, her golden eyes wide. "Whatever you do, do it now," she said. A bullet whined past Jack's ear. Chipping the stone beside him, he made his choice. He slammed the crystal into the ground. The light exploded outward in a blinding wave. It was like the air turned to glass and shattered. Knocking everyone off their feet, the mercenaries screamed as their weapons fried in their hands. Arcs of energy racing over their armor before dropping them unconscious into the sand. Arvin fell to one knee, his head bowed. Lyra was still standing, but her breathing was ragged. Jack felt the bond between them flare, a heat that wasn't from the desert sun. The crystal's glow faded slowly, leaving behind a faint hum in the air. Silence returned to the oasis, except for the soft ripple of water. Jack looked down at the broken remains of the crystal. Its power gone. Lyra touched his arm gently. "You've just destroyed the king's weapon," she said, "and saved both our people." Arvon pushed himself to his feet. Limping toward them, his gaze met Jack's, hard but no longer filled with hate. "You are bound to my sister," he said. "I cannot change that, but know this, your survival will always be tested." Then, without another word, he turned and disappeared into the canyon shadows. Jack stood there, unsure what to say. Lyra stepped closer, her voice softer now. "You could have run," she said, "but you stayed. That means something to me." The bond between them pulsed again. And Jack realized it wasn't just magic tying them together anymore. They left the oasis on the Sandrunner, the ruined crystal pieces in Lyra's pack. The desert wind whipped past them, carrying away the smoke and the sound of battle ahead. The horizon stretched wide and open, full of danger, but also something new possibility. Lyra glanced back at him, a faint smile playing at her lips. "So, husband," she said, "where do we go next?" Jack looked out at the endless sand, feeling the weight of their choices and the strange, fierce hope building in his chest. "Anywhere," he said, "as long as we go together."